Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now are Emilio Danella and our Fulham legends Gordon Davis and Rob Wilson to discuss the beginning of the season and what their thoughts are for Fulham for the rest of the season. We have a lot to get to, but let's not waste any time. Emilio, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, guys. Nice to have you both on the show again. So, yeah, can't believe it was only like the other day we were talking about the end of last season. Here we are, start of a new season, unbeaten. Lots to look forward to. So, yeah, look forward to hearing these guys' comments and predictions for the season ahead. So, always a pleasure to do the show with you both.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Wilson, how you doing? Always great to have you with us.
Yeah, good evening, Ross. Good evening, Emilio, and good evening, Ivor. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, 3 games in. Yeah, we're looking all right. Even though, as we'll touch on, I'm sure the squad not been really added to, other than a goalkeeper who made his debut last night. So yeah, really looking forward to it. There's some nice signs there, I think, with the current squad. I still think we need some additions in this next sort of 48, 72 hours to really strengthen it, because I'm sure we'll need it at some stage throughout the long season.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But before I do that, I have to welcome back Gordon. Gordon, I just share this with you. It's always great to have you on. Emilio is acting a little positive so far. It's actually a little shocking. It must be your influence.
That's what we want. If Emilio's going to be positive, then we're going to have a good season. And obviously, as Rob said, we've started the season reasonably well. And we'll talk about the games in a few moments. But
we will.
But yeah, it's strange how I think the transfer window has gone. It's good that we've not lost anybody, and I'm sure we'll talk about the Bristol City game as well. And that was if you call it, our second 11 that played. So you could have put that team out against many of the Premier League sides, and we would have thought we're in with a chance of getting a result. So, although I'd still like to see, even we usually bring loan players in at this late in the window, but I've not heard or seen anything with regards to linking us with players. And generally, and I think I've said on this show before, us, Crystal Palace and West Ham are usually linked with exactly the same players in a transfer window. And as yet, we've not been linked with those two clubs with anybody, as far as I'm aware. So it's going to be interesting the next sort of few days in the transfer window.
Okay, that's great. And that's actually where I want to start. Then we're going to talk about the matches, and then we'll talk a little bit about the squad. Let's start with talking about the summer transfer window, because I want to get your thoughts on why you think we are where we are, where we're just days away from the end of the transfer window, and Fulham have only signed a backup goalkeeper. They have signed some young players and some of their own players, which is great. Rob, why do you think we are where we are right now?
Well, it's a strange one. I mean, over the years, we've been, as you well know, we've always left some of our business right until the last minute, and even on transfer deadline, going back 3 or 4 years ago, we probably signed 4 or 5 players in one day in a sort of 24, 72, 48 hours, 72 period. We just seem to do all our work so late. And I mean, Marco would have had his list at the beginning of the transfer window. It would have been an A, B, and a C if you can get him in the positions he needed. And I bet deep down, he's absolutely, well, we know he's fuming, because we've seen some of his comments and his interviews where he's politely told the board in an indirect way that, you know, he would have expected players to be in by now. You know, he should have gone to Portugal in that training sort of 7-8 day as a build-up exercise with new players to bed them in. And when that didn't happen, I know for a fact that, you know, he would have been absolutely livid that he hasn't got any of his targets, whether it's A, B, or C. But, you know, there's little have faith. We've got another, you know, we've got a few more days.
Yep.
But we do need some bodies, because, you know, although, as Gordon alluded to, we had a nice 11 play last night against, albeit a championship side, we would have probably held our own against you know, any of the Palace or the West Ham or the Brighton last night. That 11 probably 2 or 3 years ago might have been our first 11, you know, at some stage. So, yeah, we do need some competition for places, and we do need some bodies in, just so we've got backup when we do have that tough period, I'm sure, which we will have over this next sort of 50-game season.
Absolutely good stuff there, Rob. Before I go to Gordon, I want to go to you, Emilio, because I agree with Rob. I want to say, not surprisingly, Fulham's team looks like they've already gelled together. I think that gives them a little bit of advantage in the beginning of the season, but they need reinforcements. What do you make of what's happened so far?
Look, I think let's take the positives, right? I think we haven't lost anyone, to Gordon's point. I think that's, we would have taken that at the end of last season. We thought many of these players would have gone by now. Maybe we needed to upgrade here, needed to upgrade there, but we've signed Josh King for a long-term contract. We've got, Harry Wilson, Kenny. We thought Kenny was on his way out. Last minute we managed to get a better deal for him. So look, we've got the spine of that same team as last season. So fundamentally, the framework hasn't changed, but clearly we do need some additions. We've got African Nations Cup in January, so we've got to be the 2 players at least that we're going to lose there. So that's a risk already. And then traditionally we do run out of steam from February onwards to the end of the season, and that's partly because. And I think, look, there's 2 sides of the story here. There's a chicken and egg situation. Marco's, I don't know, clearly not committing to a long-term contract. You could argue the owners are not willing to invest the cash for maybe the fact that, look, you commit, we give you the money and the players. It is a chicken and egg situation. I think the Khans get sometimes a hard time. It's easy to blame them, but there's 2 sides to the equation here, and
right.
We do need reinforcement, like we've mentioned, but I'm trying to understand why is there a reluctance to invest early. I know there's all these new these new policies that come into place at the end of the season, and looking at your wage structure and all that versus your revenue. That's clearly a problem. Our wage bill is too high versus how much income comes into the club. So we need to get more sponsorship as a matter of course. That's a fundamental. So hopefully the marketing team and the Khans are doing something there to get more sponsorship and get more interest from other continents, because that's clearly a key factor. And I think the key, if Marco's not signing on the dotted line, that what would you do? Would you trust him to that level of spend, knowing that he may or may not be there in a few? And then that's a reason why many players are saying, well, do I want to come to Fulham if I don't know who my boss is going to be in a year's time? So it's a chicken and egg situation. And I think there's many different factors, but I don't think it's all attributed to the Khans here. I think there's 2 sides to every equation.
I agree, Emilio. And that's going to lead me to go to Gordon, because he led me exactly what I wanted to ask you, Gordon. I'll ask Rob the same thing. You guys are Fulham legends and former players. And I actually think Marco's contract is part of the issue. Like I said, I think the Khans with their business model is the other part, because they do tend to do deals late in the window, which I prefer that they didn't do. And like Rob said, at the beginning of the window, he should have had 2 or 3 players in Portugal with him, but he did not. So I think Silva's contract situation on 2 sides, on the Khan side and also on Mark, might be causing players not to want to come to Fulham. I want to get your thoughts on that. Is that a factor? Do you think that might be a factor?
I think it is. I think the nail has probably been hit right on the head with Emilio's comment about Marco, because if you know that a manager may or may not be there, it is going to play on your mind, as if to say, well, look, we couldn't finish in the European spot last year and gone into Europe. And does the club then turn to Marco and say, right, we want you on a 4 or a 5 year contract, and then we can start bringing players in? Because you get into Europe, you do need the quality, you do need numbers. The only positive from this transfer window at present is, as Emilio said, we've signed a few of the youngsters on longer term contracts, and the majority of players seem to be happy at Fulham. There's been no talk of people wanting away, even to get to a bigger club like Palhinha did. He went to Bayern Munich, couldn't get in their team. Now he's at Tottenham at present. So I think Marco's position is very, very awkward for not only Marco himself, but the club, because who do you tie down first? Do you give him the money to spend on players to try to get in when they know that he might not be there? Or do you sign the manager on a longer term contract and say, you're doing a fantastic job, you've done it with the players that we've got in, which when you look at them, and I've said a lot about our squad of players, if I could mention 6 names that if they were playing to their ability in our team and helping us get in the top 8, they wouldn't be playing for Fulham Football Club. And I've got to mention one person at present because it's the worst game I've seen him have since he came to the club. I was down there for this Bristol City Cup game, and Traore.
I knew you were going to say it.
Who should be frightening the life out of everybody he plays against, never mind a championship fullback, had the worst game that I've seen him have since he signed for us. And he couldn't trap a bag of cement. He couldn't cross a ball. He couldn't finish. And to be perfectly honest with you, if he'd have been brought off after 20 minutes, I would have said, right, now you have a word with him and sort him out before the next game. But when you put a performance in like that, and Marco, I was above Marco, and you could see him, he was pulling his hair out with his performance. And you then think, well, he's going to be on the subs bench for the next game. And you can't have that. We need new players in. We need that pressure put on other players to push for a first team spot. And yes, I know Tom Kenny and Willow's a big friend of the family. He signed a 1-year contract when I thought it would be better for him to go to a top championship side and get that championship side promoted for his own sort of career, because he'll play 10, 12 games this year, maybe, and in the cups, but he could go somewhere else to a very good championship team, play 40 or 50 games for them and reignite his career. But we've kept him on, and he was fantastic against Bristol City. But we need those competition for first team spots from number 1 right through to whatever you want to class it, number 365 these days.
See, I totally agree with that, Gordon. Rob, I want to go to you. I want to get your thoughts on what Gordon just shared about competition, because they need players for better competition for places, but also I want to get your thoughts on what we're talking about with Marco's contract. Like I said, as Emilio said very well, it's chicken and egg, but I think it's causing this problem for getting players to commit to Fulham.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think we alluded to it and just off air before we did go live, and Gordon just highlighted exactly what we're probably all thinking. It's, if I was going to be signing a 3 or 4 year contract at Fulham, knowing that the manager's only got 1 year left, would I be committing? I would be asking the question, or the agent would be saying to the manager, Kevin wants to sign, or Chuck Wheatley wants to sign, but you might not be here at the end of this season. And like you say, on the flip side of it, does Mr. Khan give 30, 40, 50 million worth of transfer money to Marco to spend, knowing that, in 12 months' time, he may not be here? So it is a difficult one, and we do need competition for places, definitely, because as we've discussed, I think a few injuries and a January sort of the African Cup, and then the normal Fulhamish after the new year, we seem to just be a bit lethargic the last 3 months of the season. We do need, I know we can only have 25, and we've got some exciting youngsters still in the background. And I think it was strange that the club organised an under-21 game on the same night that we're playing Bristol City, when some of them youngsters could have got some experience being on the bench or actually getting some minutes. That how that happened, I'll never know to this day. But yeah, as Gordon said, it was nice seeing some of the players get some game time last night against Bristol City, and I'm sure 5 or 6 of them will be on the bench again on Saturday at our SW6 rivals, which I'm sure we'll all be looking forward to. But yeah, we need some bodies in before Monday, definitely. And the people we've been linked with, not, I've had to Google them to find out what they're, how good they are, or what they're, it just doesn't seem to be. The Sterlings of this world and the Nelsons now are talking to Palace. We've had these rumours for 6, 8, 10 weeks now, and we're leaving it to the last sort of like 72 hours before we might find it. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't sign anyone. It would not surprise me if we did not sign anyone. Based around the information and the discussions we're having on Marco and his contract, and trust in investing in players that may not want to sign, etc. So if come Monday we haven't signed someone, I would not be surprised.
Okay, Robin, if that is the case, that would be just terrible. That would be horrible, because they have a wonderful opportunity. And one of the reasons why I wanted to focus on the first couple matches and also talk about the cup match is that there's promise there if they add additions. If they can get players in that can impact what they currently have, competition, as you guys said, I think that there's a possibility that we could turn a mid-table side into fighting for Europe. This team right now, I don't see it because they just don't have enough depth and really enough quality. I'll just say it there. I just don't think they have enough quality to really fight for Europe. But that can change. But like you said, Rob, I'm a little fearful that you could be right. I hope you're wrong. I know you hope you're wrong.
I mean, and the danger is Andreas looks like the rumours that he could be on his way. So, he didn't figure last night, and I'm sure by the sounds of it, he could be gone by Monday. So, that's an experienced midfield player. I know he didn't have his best season last year, but I still think he's been a good player for Fulham over the years. And I personally liked him and he brings something to the table. So it'll be disappointing to see him go, but it will free up space, hopefully, that we do sign someone else within that sort of. I know it gives Josh King, which I think he's going to be a revelation this season. It'll free up him to get more game time, which I'm excited to look at. But I'll be sorry to see Andreas go because I think he's been good for Fulham.
Okay, very good. All right, guys, let's get to it. And let's start by talking about the Brighton Hove Albion match, the beginning of the season. Emilio, I'll go to you first. And Brighton Hove Albion is a team that I have a lot of respect for, especially there. I know Fulham have played fairly well against them. We've gotten results against them, but a team that is just a very good side. A team that you really have to work hard to get anything from, especially at the Amex. I was encouraged by what I saw. What are your thoughts on the opening match of the season?
Yeah, I've always said I'd always rather play the tougher games earlier in the season because you've got a level playing field, right? So it's, Brighton, Man United, first 2 games, and Chelsea's first 3 games, not easy 3 games to start a season with. So far we're unbeaten. I thought Brighton and Fulham were very average. It's my first game of the season. Nothing to write home about. My first comment at the end of the game is both teams need to improve. Clearly it's both looked a bit rusty. Brighton had obviously a few new players that they tried to gel in the team, but we matched them. We gave away a stupid penalty. Really, there was no need to have committed that foul there. I thought it was a little. But we had moments in the first half. Josh King looked revelation, like using Rob's adjective there. He looked lively, exciting. Tried to make things work. I thought there was a penalty decision against him we should have got something in that from that decision. But overall, nothing to the 2 very similar match teams, in my opinion. I think Brighton fans, I've got quite a few that I know. They're very bullish about their team. They think, they're going to hit the dizzy heights of top 6 or top 8. I think from what I saw that day, I don't think we're a million miles away from each other. We're closely matched, but they've got youth. They've got young players. They always find this room to sell players on like £100 million transfer fees, and then manage to buy 3 or 4 other good players, and they just keep returning young players for stupid transfer fees. But I don't think we've got anything to be worried about Brighton. I think they're not going to be hitting those dizzy heights that they recommend. I think Fulham can match them over the course of a 38 match season, and I think we deserve that equaliser at the end. What was disappointing with all the possession we had, we didn't carve out enough opportunities. That was my only concern. A lot of possession, a lot of build-up play, good penetration, good press. Where's that final ball, that killer ball in the box? And now the same with the Man United. We'll talk about Man United in a minute.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next. Yeah.
I press, push, sideways, moving. We try to keep the ball moving, but just needed that one bit of quality. Chemo, and then give Smith Rowe his dues. He tried to do that, forced the corner kick, and we scored from it. But overall, positives are we matched Brighton over 90 minutes. There was not much difference in the 2 teams. A good point on the road. That's a point more than we had last season when we lost in last seconds of the game when we gave away a penalty for Brighton to win that game. So overall, we've got to find, I think that's what the guys have said, that you've got to find that player that can make that key pass in the box, make something happen. I mean, a little bit less predictable at times, but overall, a good point on the road, especially in the first game of the season.
Okay, excellent. Over to you, Gordon. What did you make of getting that draw against Brighton Hove Albion? I think it's a very good point, especially at the beginning of the season. But I think what Emilio just shared is something that is unfortunately has been a theme for a while, with just being able to not just create opportunities but score goals.
Yeah, it's been a problem that I've sort of been speaking about for the last few years, with that final ball, or the quality of the final ball, or sometimes how many times we actually get the ball in the danger areas for midfield players and forwards to try to score. We turn down the opportunity sometimes to cross a ball maybe 4 or 5, 6 times on the trot. And as Emilio said, we'll come out, we'll go back around the opposite way, we'll get into a crossing position on the opposite side of the pitch, still turn another opportunity down. So the front lads and the midfield players, they don't know when to start their run. They don't know when the ball is going to come in. And when Rob and myself play together, if we knew the ball was coming in, for instance, I'd hit near post, Dixie would hit far post, and Rob would come in between us. And if he saw me staying in the penalty spot, he'd hit the near post. I might even swing around the back, and Dixie comes into the middle of the goal. I'm on the far post. But there's not that kind of movement with our forwards or our forward sort of attacking midfield players, because one, we don't know when the ball's going to come in, and then when it does come in, we're obviously reacting then and we're always sort of second best. But Emilio sort of brought up 2 points with regards to the Brighton game, or the Brighton game and Brighton itself. They do seem to unearth these people that we've never heard of for 5 million, 6 million from different leagues around the world, and they come in, they hit the ground running, and they have a good season, good 2 seasons, and they sell them at a massive profit. What is our coaching sort of scouting system doing? Because we never seem to bring those players in. We're always getting the players who haven't done it at a top team, and now we're giving them a second chance.
Yeah, that's what we get. Gordon. That's a good point.
We can't unearth these youngsters who come in and play really well, and you think, Jesus, I've not heard of this fella. Like Rob said, he was on Google trying to find out about people, which is, as I suppose, is a good thing. But there's that point, and obviously, I'd go on another point. We've come back in 2 games late on in the game, so at least it shows that the players that we've got are going for a full 90 plus minutes to try and whatever get that goal. And we've come from behind on 2 occasions. So the one thing that I would say, if Pereira does leave, and Emil Smith-Rowe might or Josh King could fit into that number 10 role, and I suppose it's shown. We've always said for the last 18 months or 12 months, Emil Smith-Rowe needs to step up to the mark this season. He's had a full pre-season. He seems to be making those runs that Rob did into that danger area, into the 6-yard box, and he's getting on the end of things. So that's a positive that we can take from the games as well, with him looking to go forward, take players on, thread that ball through, and also get in those danger areas as well. So Brighton, at the end of the day, you look at the 2 games, and yes, if somebody had said at the beginning of the season, would you accept 2 draws, 1 away to Brighton, 1 at home to we don't know who's going to turn up, Man United, I would have said yes. If we get 2 points out of that and we're unbeaten, then that's a decent start for us.
Okay, excellent. And Rob, actually, Gordon brought up 2 good points, but talking about 2 points I really want to get your thoughts on from this match. One is really Josh King, because I thought that he played very well in a start, beginning of the season, and also Emil Smith-Rowe. These 2 players, because I think Gordon's on to something you and I talked about before the show. I think that there is a time and place for the 2 of them to play together in this team. But I am encouraged by what I saw from Josh King. Plays with no fear, runs the entire match, shows his quality. What did you see from him in this Brighton Hove Albion match? And also ESR.
Yeah, most definitely. Josh is I'd put my hat on him being a player that will come to the forefront this season and I'd be surprised if he's not a regular every game. Yeah, I mean, he's only a young kid. I mean, he's got natural skill and his low sense of gravity, the way he moves, and he's always on the half turn. He looks an absolute revelation. I think he will be, and I'm really glad that Marco's invested in him. Because it's a brave decision for managers to invest in young kids. I hope he sticks with him. Game in, game out. He might drop him in and out after a few games. And on to Emil, and again we talked off air, but I actually think he looks a bit fitter this season. And I was actually really disappointed. And I thought last night was his first time that he could have got 90 minutes.
Yeah,
I was
why
disappointed.
did they not
Why
finish?
take him off
Mark?
on 85? Like, it would have boosted his confidence to give him
Right.
90 minutes and go right through and finish a game
Yeah.
in a Fulham shirt for a full season. You know, I think taking him off for
I
what
didn't
reason?
understand that.
You know what I mean? He didn't look lethargic. I thought he played a bit too much out on the left, if I was honest. I'd like him to have been a little bit more like he did for the United goal, come in late, like Gordon said. I just think, with Andreas possibly going, and we have talked about it briefly, but I think at home we should only play Lukic or Berger, and then we play King and Emil in the 10 and an 8, and then one of them as 6. Away from home, I'd play Berger and Lukic as a 6 and as two 6 or 8s. So just stop in front. But I think we need to be a little bit more forceful at home. Our home form last season was very indifferent, and we got a lot of our points away from home. So this season, I'm hoping Marco, really goes for games from first minute, and the likes of Josh King and Emil. What I've seen already in these first 3 games and what I saw in pre-season, I think he looks fitter and he looks a little bit more hungrier than he did. It is a big season for him, because if he doesn't cut the mustard this year, that 34 million we paid for him, we ain't getting half of that back, wherever his next move might be,
Okay, excellent stuff. All right, I definitely wanted to get started by talking about that match. I want to follow that up now. I'll go to you, Gordon, first, and I'll go to Emilio afterwards. Talk about the Manchester United match. And this is what I'm curious your thoughts on. Overall, I want one of your thoughts, but I really want to pick your brain about Marco's decision to start the team he started and play the formation he began with. I was a little bit surprised, Gordon. I actually thought maybe it was a little bit too conservative. What did you make of the way Marco set Fulham up against Manchester United?
It did seem strange, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, whether it was this is the system that Manchester United are going to play, and this is how Amorim wants them to play, so we're going to combat that to start with and not give anything away early on and be 1 or 2 down. It could have been that type of thing, but when you then think we probably could have been 2 down in about 6 or 8 minutes, then you tend to think, well, that's not working to start with. Even at the start of a game, when everybody's fit, when everybody's just had their last meeting in the changing room and been told what to do, how to do it, don't forget it, and you go out in the pitch, and then we could have been 2-0 down, and the game could have been over within the first 10 minutes. But it was strange to see the players that played, the way that they played, because overall, all right, it wasn't a great game, but again, when you've got something that goes against you, what I like is the attitude of the players as a whole. And as Rob mentioned about Josh King, I think he's going to go down the Carvalho route. I think he's going to get a place in the team and he's going to stick in there. But what I will say is one player that I've not mentioned, but I was down at the Eintracht Frankfurt game, was one of the under-21s, a misser who played left back.
Yes, it was very good.
To be honest with you, to me, he didn't look out of place. And I thought, I honestly thought I was going to see him in the squad for the Brighton game or for the Man United game. But obviously, he's one for the future. But to be perfectly honest with you, I think if we have a problem at left back, and you could put him at left back and have Cess, if Robinson is injured, put Cess wide left. And I think it'd give us another dynamic going down that left-hand side. But I wanted to give him a mention because I thought he looks, again, he didn't look out of place in that pre-season friendly. But the good thing about the players is that they're still playing. I still think, as Emilio said earlier, we tend to want to keep the ball and not play quick enough, especially trying to get forward. And we have got pace in the team. We have got players that can break that line. Even from midfield, but we take a hell of a long time sometimes, especially at home, to get at teams, and then we've got to break basically 2 banks of 5 down before we create any chances. And then you come to the point, because everything has got to be so tight, so specific, so on point. When you've got 10 players, you've got to try and pass around. That's where sometimes it breaks down. And we end up chasing back we're on our back foot from controlling the game to a certain extent. But with the United, I don't know why he played as he did, why he started off as he did, because when you're at home, you want to get on the front foot. You want the supporters to see shots, to see crosses come in, to see chances scored and missed, and it lifts the whole stadium. And we're still a fairly quiet stadium because we've probably got 50% people come in who have never watched Fulham before. So we're still a quiet crowd in relative terms, but we need to be on the front foot for the first 20 minutes and see if we can score 2-3 goals in the first 20 minutes and put the game to bed early rather than probably losing it in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, very interesting stuff, Gordon. Thank you. And I want to go to you, Emilio, because I think Gordon really just honed in on what was bothering me. It was the approach from the beginning. I actually agree with Gordon. I think he was more concerned about Amarin's tactics than thinking about playing on the front foot. Eventually, that all switched because I think Fulham were the better side for 70-plus minutes.
Yeah, and you look at the way Man United played against Arsenal the previous week. Man United they played well.
That was a factor in this.
Yeah. I thought they played well against Arsenal without necessarily scoring any goals, but I didn't disagree with the lineup, so to speak. I think, Rob, you hit an important point there. Home form last season, not good enough. If you want to push into Europe this season, home form needs to be better. So again, we've got an extra point on the board. We lost at home to Man United last season in another dire game. And Gordon's right. Man United games against Fulham aren't always classics, to be honest with you. It's only in the last few seasons. And Amarin plays a particular style of football. And I thought, although we rode our luck in the first 10 minutes, Leno made a great save, top-class save. Couldn't you hit the post? I think he shot over the bar. But we weathered that storm, right, after 10, 15 minutes. And then we started to grow into the game. Cess and Iwobi were playing well on the left, coming forward. I just thought the concern I had is, I think, Rob, you also mentioned, is Berger and Lukic first half, too slow. Man United went straight down the middle throughout, first 15, 20 minutes. We struggled to contain them. Defensively, I thought we did reasonably well. We like I said, with a bit of luck, but also we were defending quite well. But it was too easy to get through down that middle. Berger looked sluggish, and Lukic in the first half, I thought, had again another average game. He was probably the best player second half, but again we changed our system. So, right. But you could argue it worked, that tactic. We kept it tight. We didn't fall behind. We grew into the game, and Anderson. I'm going to call out Anderson. I think I said it to you off air. Yeah, very poor season last year. I thought he's had 2 bloody good games this season. Led against Brighton in defence with Cuenca alongside him, and acted like a captain in that game because he was giving a lot of coaching and mentoring to Cuenca throughout that game. I could see him just talking, giving him direction. And after that indifferent 10 minutes against Man United, what could you do for 80 minutes? Nothing. Anderson had him in his back pocket for the best part of the game. So
yeah, that's true.
Let's pull out positives where they're due, because I thought Anderson, after a pretty crap season, hopefully he can continue this form for the rest of the season. But overall, I thought the tactic worked well. We went into half time, goal, 0-0, all square. We then opened up and we were the much better team. And on the day, you could argue, disappointing we didn't win that game.
That's how I feel.
Disappointing goal to concede, but fair play. We battled, we fought back. A great work goal. Smith Rowe in the right place at the right time. And again, it's like Gordon said earlier, if we had that better quality final ball in the last 20 mininutes, we would have won that game. Yeah. We had all that percent. I think there was a moment, some good one-touch passing. I think, was it Kenny or was it? I can't remember who it was. Trying to walk the ball in the net. Just shoot. Put the keeper under pressure. Force the keeper to make a save. And I think that's the point. Time we're trying to walk the ball in the net, and Man United in their defence, they defended well the last 20 minutes. But for me, it's that final ball. Both those games, we could have ended up with 6 points instead of 2. So we would have taken 2 points at the beginning of the season, but in hindsight, with that better quality final ball, we could have come away with 6 points.
Yeah,
that's an interesting. Emil, good stuff from both of you. But Rob, I want to give you final word on it, because the more these two guys talk about, the more I feel disappointed that they came away with a draw, because I thought they were there for the taking. Not in the beginning stages, because as we all know, they could have been up by 2 or 3 goals, but they weathered the storm. Then there was an opportunity there. But I think the way that they set up, it's just my opinion. I just think it hindered them, especially at home, where you should be playing as Gordon said, I don't care who it is. Well, I shouldn't say that. But there are exceptions, but this isn't Manchester United from the good days. I mean, this is who they are now. Take advantage of them and worry more about yourself. That's kind of what actually disappointed me.
Yeah, I mean, both games we could have won them, and both games we could have lost them. You know what I mean? We didn't have a shot on target until the 92nd minute against Brighton. Before we scored in the 97th minute, and we could have been 2 down at any stage. And as we've all seen, we could have been 2 or 3 down in the first half against Man United. But at least we showed some resilience in both games and came back, which is a nice sign to see. We've come back and scored late again on the Brighton game, and like you say, scoring like we did in the second half. And probably in hindsight, we could have gone on and won that game with a little bit more conviction, a little bit more sort of, zest to get in the box, or say do something off the cuff, or take a shot instead of a cross it instead of having one touch too many. But overall, as I say, before the season, if you'd have said to me, we've got a point at Brighton, which is a difficult place to go, not many teams will win there. I know we've had our ups and downs over the years there, winning late on and losing late on last year. And United is a bogey side. We haven't beaten them at home for over 8-9 seasons. So to get a point out of both of them games, I was happy. And then obviously then the squad team beat Bristol City last night, and then we go into the Chelsea game, which is a nice game to have on a Saturday lunchtime. I mean, it's tough turnaround for. At least we didn't have to play many of the players last night. But, in terms, I wouldn't have thought many of them that started last night would be starting on Saturday. 1 or 2 might have to. But we go into that Chelsea game, which is going to be a difficult game. Which they're the world champions, and it'd be interesting to see if Cole Palmer's playing. Yeah, but I would have no fears going there. And looking at us over the 2 games that we've already started, I'd like us to create a little bit more chances. But we're away from home, and I look forward to only being one team winning in SW6 on Saturday lunchtime.
That'd be great, and I hope it's Fulham.
And I'll be there watching as well.
That's great. Rob, I'm going to go right back to you. Let's talk about the Bristol City match that I watched last night. The one thing Gordon and I were, or was it you? We were talking. I think it was you. We were talking about the announcer kept saying Castagna's name.
The commentators. Yeah.
Oh, it was terrible.
Was it Paramount Plus or whatever it was?
Yes, it was. It was terrible.
Honestly, if he drove you mad, he drove me mad. He must have said, "Oh, Tom Kearney's the best technician 6 times in the 90 minutes." And Castagna, he couldn't pronounce the name properly. And his co-commentator, Sam, whoever it was, didn't even get the names of whoever they were. But I've seen lots on social media on Fulham saying, who was them 2 commentating last night on that game? Because it made Gailey look quite decent, and you know what I mean, and he's commentating. But yeah, in terms of the Bristol City match, I mean, I mean, listen, we saw what happened. We played in first gear. Tom Kearney, typical, kept the ball. Him and you look how many touches the 2 centre halves and Tom had between the 3 of them, probably nearly 400 touches. Yeah, just them 3, 300 and something. It was a nice first half. I think we stepped off the gas a little bit in the second half. Bristol City, obviously, they're a youngish side, had a fairly good season last year in trying to make the playoffs. It was a nice game time for all them 11 or 12 or 13, given the subs coming on. As we alluded to again earlier on, it would have been nice to see some of the youngsters get the chance, totally. The 18s, 19s, 21s. But, strange, crazy enough, we've got another game organised, whether it's the league or Premier League or whoever organises games on the same night as the first team night. It's ludicrous. But, into the next round, obviously, which was nice. Cambridge at home should, it'd be nice to go all the way again. We've been close a few times these last few years in terms of semis and quarters. Wouldn't it be nice to end up at Wembley at some point in February, March or May if it's FA Cup, to get back there? But it's just a nice that the subs, the reserve players, so-called reserve players who would have been first team players probably 12 months ago, 18 months ago, got the game time, and 5 or 6 of them again will be on the bench for Saturday's game at Chelsea.
Yeah, very good. All right. Back over to you, Gordon. We've already talked a little bit about it. We've already talked about your thoughts on Traore. I echo that. He was not good. He was bad in this match. But I want to talk a little bit about what you said before. You brought up Amissa. I would have loved to have seen him in this match. I would have loved to have seen some of these young players. The young striker, I would have loved to have seen him against his side. Why not? Seth Ridgen, why not? But the team he put out was very strong. I just thought they were on cruise control for the majority of the match. I actually want to give some credit to Bristol City. I kind of like the way they played in the second half. So that stood out for me. What did you make of the game?
Well, Bristol tried to play football as most of the teams do these days. I know they've got a 6'5" centre forward as well, and I was expecting him to play and them to go route one to try and cause a few problems, or at least get the ball in and around our box area and perhaps pick up a second ball, get an early goal against the run of play. But I agree with you. It does seem strange, and whether it's now the pressure that Marco feels under with regards to the youngsters, because yes, you're playing Bristol City at home, you should win the game. And then you've only got to say Grimsby against Manchester United. You should win the game with 6 or 7 first team players and 3 or 4 youngsters playing, because you've got the rest of the first team or the reserves on the bench anyway. You can change half your team these days. So by all means, bring some of the youngsters on, see how they cope against a championship side at home. But it was, I suppose the phrase that I used when I was sort of watching the game, it appeared as though it was just a training game for us.
Exactly.
And there was no urgency there. It was, how many passes can we put together without giving the ball away? How can we work our way up the pitch? And then when you're in that final third, let's ignore, as I mentioned earlier, let's ignore the crossing opportunities and come back to the halfway line and go back down at the opposite corner. And it just appeared as though it was so easy for the first team players that were out there that there was no urgency at all to make that killer pass, to get the ball in the box urgently, to score early goals, and perhaps to end up winning the game 4, 5, 6, 7-0. But I think it was in the back of their minds. We know we're better than the team we're playing. We've only got to keep the ball. A chance will come. We'll put it away. And really the game's over at 1-0 unless Bristol City start coming out and throwing people forward to get an equaliser. But in games like that, yes, it was nice to get a second goal from our point of view, because you can guarantee in years gone by, we would have given a late goal away and it would have gone to penalties, and then anything can happen, as already been proved with Leeds and Man United going out. So it was a good result at the end of the day. It was a run out for the players, but to be perfectly honest with you, it was a training game for them.
That's what I feel. And Emilio, do you agree with that? It felt like a training game. Like I said, they played on cruise control. They scored a couple goals and basically really didn't feel any urgency. I think Gordon really nailed it.
Yeah, and I think beginning of the season, thin squad, you don't want to risk injuries. Yeah, I think that's the key thing. Right? I think we had a stronger squad, and maybe I think he might have rested some of those other players. But who else does he play? That's the problem. He's not blessed with an infinite number of players in his book. So get the job done. Get in the next round. We've got Cambridge United, another game we should be winning at home, but it was important to keep the players fit, no injuries. I think Harry Wilson, we don't know the extent of his injury. That's the only downside of yesterday's game. But overall, we did the job, yeah. Unbeaten start to the season. Clean sheet, important as well, motivationally, to keep a clean sheet. We only had, a handful last season, so that's something we need to sort out this year as well. But again, let's move on to Chelsea. That's a big test, right? I think
we're going to talk about that coming up.
So, but overall, the game won't stand out in living memory. I think we'll soon forget about last night's game. So, nothing to call right home about, really. Let's be honest. We did the job, like Gordon said, and on to the next round. But look what happened last season. We played Preston North End. They took us to penalties, and what did we look? 15-4, 16-15, whatever it was, something stupid. Yeah. So again, these teams are no mugs in the Championship. On the day Grimsby, fourth tier? They've knocked out Man United. We shouldn't underestimate the extent of those players. And I actually like the guy, Mayulu for Bristol City. He
Yeah,
looked quick.
yeah.
Fulham, go and sign him. He looked quick. He looked lively. He looked mobile in the penalty area. You want to get a cheap player, Fulham? Go and sign the Bristol City striker. Get him on your books. These are the players we need to be attracting. Getting some youth, some quality, and depth to that squad. But the other thing is something we haven't noted is we've talked about Brighton going in and buying all these young players for 10 million, then selling them 3-4 times as much. How much of that is also Marco not wanting to play with the young players? He's always
I think that's a factor, Emilio.
He's always liked to have established Premier League players. To Gordon's point, if Traore was good enough, he wouldn't be playing for Fulham each week. He's getting the best out of these players, albeit they're not good enough to play for a top 6, but good enough to Fulham. So that's another factor that I think we've mentioned last season, and we should call that out as well, because Brighton got a slightly different strategy when it comes to the transfer market, whereas we're very much safety first, players who know this league, tried and tested, and Marco can manage them and coach them better.
Okay, excellent. All right. Coming up next to end the show, I'm going to ask 2 questions to my guests. They're going to be asking their thoughts on the Chelsea match, give a prediction there, and a season prediction, because we have not done one. So we're going to do both in just a few seconds. Okay, guys, let's get to it. Emilio, I'll go right back to you. I want you to give me a prediction and your thoughts on the Chelsea match, and then we have not done a season prediction, which we normally do, the 4 of us. We're going to do it now. Okay. So give me your thoughts on the Chelsea match and then a season prediction.
Again, I don't think there's nothing to fear against Chelsea. Yeah, they're world champions, so to speak, but on the day, they I think we can get something out of it. I'm quite bullish about Saturday. I think we play this, many of the players that didn't start last night, they'll be fresh. I think someone commented the fact that there's an unfair advantage to Chelsea because they've not had to play a League Cup game this week, but that shouldn't bother us. If we play with the right level of positivity, set ourselves up well, and not concede early, I think I'm going to call out a 1-1 draw. I think we can get something out of the game.
Okay.
But with all the pressures on Chelsea, all the expectations are Chelsea should be winning this game comfortably. That's what they said last season. Look, we turned them over and won at Stamford Bridge. So no reason why we can't hurt them and give them something to think about. So I'm going for a 1-1 draw.
Okay. Chris Goodwin's going for 3-1 to Fulham with a Josh King hat trick. I'll take that any day of the week. All right, Emilio, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Give me your season prediction.
And I'll give you the prediction as I said 2 weeks ago before the season started.
That's right. Go there.
I predicted 13th.
13th. Okay.
I think 54 points will be a challenge this year. I think we've always said Man United, Tottenham will get better.
Okay, you're already getting the thumbs down. You knew that this is going to happen.
Yeah,
you're getting the thumbs down.
That was based on 2 weeks ago. No signings, no depth. Obviously, circumstances. We've got to look at the facts on the table, right?
Okay.
I think 12th or 13th. I said 13th 2 weeks ago before the season started.
Okay, all right.
That's the Emilio we want. We want Emilio back. Yes, well done.
Okay, well, that's going to lead me to go to Gordon. So it's time for Gordon to counter this. But first, let's talk about your thoughts on the Chelsea match. Where do you see this going, Gordon? How do you feel about this upcoming match at Stamford Bridge? We did beat them last season, big victory. What do you make of this?
I think this season they're a completely different animal from last year.
Okay.
I think they've played well in the World sort of team championship, and they look a difficult side to break down, and they look a difficult side that's going forward because there's a lot of pace there, and I think we've got to be on our mettle to get anything out of the game this weekend.
Okay.
And I'm going to go 1-1 similarly, only because I think that we will be on our back foot for the majority of the game, and we need to get up that field. We need to possibly get some set pieces and see if we can score through that. But I can't see us winning there this year.
Okay.
And I'm just hoping that the lads put a performance in. Whether it's backs against the wall, I don't care. But I hope they put a performance in, and they've all got to work to their maximum this weekend to get anything out of this game. So I'm going 1-1, and I'm hoping that they can do the business.
Okay, and then what would have been your season prediction before the season began?
I'm obviously I'm a lot more positive than the purveyor of doom in the bottom corner there.
Okay.
But I'm going almost what I did last year. I said 7th. I thought we could have finished last year.
You did.
I'm going
and I went with you.
8th. I'm going 8th because I think the top 6 will probably be the top 6 for the next few years unless something happens. But purely because of the fact that Villa are having problems, Brentford are having problems. Bournemouth have been selling people. They're going to have problems. Wolves are selling people. They're going to have problems. West Ham's having problems. I think when you take all that into consideration, then I've got a feeling that we could finish in the top 8. So I'm going 8th. I'm going 8th for this season.
Wow. So I'm just going to share what I predicted, and I might disappoint you, Gordon. I actually went for 12th, which is different than I went 7th with you. I think partially because they have not been the signings that I would hope for. Again, that can all change. Like you said, if they do the signings that I think that we're talking about, then your prediction could come true. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm going to go with you 1-1 draw against Chelsea, and I'm going to give the final word to Mr. Wilson. What are your thoughts on the Chelsea match and then your prediction for the season?
Yeah, well, obviously it's going to be a difficult game, as we already know. We're playing against a team that are world champions. They've got they're signing players left, right, and centre. They're quite athletic. They're mobile. I mean, the only good thing is possibly Palmer might not be playing, which I think is pivotal for them, even though they've got other options. It just depends what Fulham team turns up there. Whether we're going to be brave and go and take the game to them. But yeah, it will be. If I were really, really honest, I'd take a draw again. If we walked away after the third game and we'd had 3-1 all draws, I'd be absolutely ecstatic. But I'm going to put my neck on the sword here and say that I think we can go and sneak a win there, and I'm going to go for a 1-0 win.
Wow!
Josh King the scorer. So I'll have to put that on a bet somehow because if that comes in, so if I can name the score, I won't name the minute, but I'll go for a 1-0. It won't be as late as last season, but I'll go for a 1-0 win and Josh King to score.
I like that prediction. I like Josh King to be the goal scorer.
And I will be there cheering, and I'll run on the pitch. No, I won't. If that comes off.
All right.
You may walk on the pitch. You're not going to run.
You're right there. My knees are knackered.
Okay. Rob, to finish up, what was your season prediction before we started the season?
And again, a bit like last season, I was positive and disappointed the way we finished the season because we all went for that sort of top 8, top 9 sort of position. I would have said 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it today, with lack of investment in the squad, I'm a bit worried about that. So I know we can't finish halfway, which is 9.5. I'm going to go for 10th.
10th. Okay.
I'd be happy if we finished 10th.
Yeah, I would too.
And Gordon's right. There's lots of other teams that are probably, that he named that are probably struggling. But other supporters of other teams would be saying the same about us. Fulham have not invested. Fulham have bought no one. They always hit a mental block in after Christmas in January, February time. So them supporters will be saying exactly the same about Fulham, what we're saying about them other 6 or 8 teams who we think are struggling. So I think if we have a good season and improve our home form, we can definitely finish 10th and above.
Okay, great stuff. I'm just going to say this before we end this show. I thoroughly enjoy doing the show with you guys, and it just takes me away for however long we talk. It's just a special time. Mr. Davis, I will meet you someday in person. I both of you, I want to meet in person, but it's always so great to talk to you. And just thank you for doing this.
No, that's fine. It's great to get with you three. And although we've ended on a bit of a depressive note with Mr. Doom in the bottom corner, he's trying his best to be positive, and it just puts a smile on my face when he says something nice about the club.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Doom, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a good show, right? I think it's like they're going back to the prediction last season. Look, we had a great season. We still finished 11th. That's the
Yeah.
reason why I've said the 13th. I said, look, it's going to be. We'll do well to match the points tally from last season.
Okay.
Does that mean we finished 11th? No worse than 11th, or good up the table? It's very congested in the middle of that table, so it's home form will dictate the future. This season we've got to get improved home form. Overall, always a good show, right? And it's always good fun. And we look forward to doing it again before Christmas. Try to do another when there's an
Absolutely.
international break. There's so many of them in the next couple of months.
Can you do it
Absolutely.
after Christmas and not before, just in case, because you might ruin Christmas for everybody.
All right, good stuff. Rob, I will end with this. I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Yeah, well, we can all dream, and you got to be positive. But like Emilio says there, I mean, I think that you look at the Tottenhams and the Man Cities who had poor seasons last year. It's going to be harder to play them at home and away this year. So to get the points tally, Emilio might be right. It would be more difficult to attain the points we did last season. We might get it in a different format and a different pattern. The way we did our home form needs to be a lot better than it was last year, whereas our away form was good. There's teams that have improved that were poor last year, and there's teams that may fall by the wayside that were good. So we just make sure that we're not the team that of the second one. We were brilliant up until Christmas, and then that last 10, 11 games was disappointing for us all.
Sure, absolutely. Good stuff from all of you. But we do have to wrap up this show. For our Fulham legends, Gordon Davis and Rob Wilson and Emilio Danello, the Fulham Shadow, I'm Russ with you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the TalkSport Fan Network.